Every week, we have parents that are exhausted from trying everything: behavior charts, dietary changes, and even different various therapists. Yet their child is still struggling with transitions, sleeplessness, and sensory overload. When they try and seek answers, they're receiving labels: ADHD, anxiety, autism. And these labels, they just accumulate alongside the appointments and the bills. But no one addresses the issue, and that's a nervous system that is stuck in chronic stress, which we refer to as busy brain syndrome. And today we're going to talk about why it occurs and also what you can do and how to address it. But before I dive in, I want to tell you about an awesome boy named James. James's parents have been coming to us for such a long time, but it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that mom decided to really give chiropractic a shot for James. She had done some research trying to figure out how her son, who suffers with some ADHD tendencies and dyslexia, was just not able to sit still. He was in school, he could never sit for a test. He had trouble focusing, doing homework. He just couldn't calm down and let his brain focus on the task at hand. His schooling, he felt so bored because he had this constant brain stimulus going on all the time with this busy brain syndrome, that school wasn't enough for him. And he loved learning, but just couldn't sit still and focus to really figure out how to absorb everything that was being taught at school. Well, the awesome news behind all this is that just a couple weeks ago, mom had come in with a big smile on her face. She walked right up to us and said, "James sat for his test today." And we're like, "That's fantastic. Was this something that he hasn't been able to do before?" Because it wasn't something that she had really brought up. It was more of just the attention span. And his mom was like, "No, he's never been able to sit for a test. And today he sat for a 40-minute test, the whole thing." And it's stories like these that bring us so much joy, which is why we want to tell them to you, because we know that there are parents like you out there who have similar struggles with their kids. And that this is not a miracle, but this is what happens when you finally address the foundation. Research shows that maternal cortisol, the stress hormone, it actually can cross the placental barrier and directly affect how a baby's brain structure forms. This elevated prenatal stress is associated with increased risk for behavioral and emotional challenges in children. So the nervous system dysfunction often begins before a child is even born and then turns into a lot of these other challenges that we see today, like anxiety, sensory processing, ADHD or busy brain, trouble focusing, trouble turning off the brain and falling asleep at night, waking frequently, chronic sickness, and so much more. Your child's autonomic nervous system, it has two modes. Think of them as the gas pedal and the brake pedal. So the gas pedal is going to be that sympathetic nervous system side. It's going to control fight or flight. It's designed for short bursts of stress, not an all-day operation. And then we have the brake pedal, the parasympathetic side, the calming side. And this is what helps your child to calm down, to sleep, to process emotions, to heal, to connect. And it's controlled largely by a nerve called the vagus nerve. In kids with busy brain syndrome, the gas pedal is stuck down all the way to the floor. And that sympathetic nervous system side is firing constantly. And it's keeping the child in a chronic state of alert and reactivity. Their sensory threshold is dramatically lower than other kids. Things that feel minor to them, things that should feel minor generally feel overwhelming to them because their nervous system is already at a capacity well beyond where it should be. And so I want to dive into what the three-phase perfect storm cascade that we see so often in these kids that are struggling with this busy brain syndrome that come into our office. And it really dials down to, we see this in a lot of kids that are struggling, not just with ADHD tendencies, but also sensory and autism and anxiety and chronic illness and everything that I had mentioned earlier. The first is prenatal stress. Maternal cortisol can cross the placenta. There are things in place that actually turn cortisol into an inactive form before it reaches the baby. But under chronic stress during pregnancy, that ability is shut down. So now the baby's actually receiving the real cortisol stress hormone, and that's actually leading to changes in fetal brain structure and increases their risk for behavior issues. So stressed pregnancy can set a baby's nervous system up for overreactivity before they're even earthside. The second is birth trauma. Interventions during delivery, whether it is forceps, vacuum extraction, manual traction, C-section, difficult labor. We see even just with that, not all these other added interventions, they can impact the vagus nerve, leading to nervous system dysfunction from day one. And third, early childhood stressors. So additional stressors like antibiotic use for ear infections, excessive screen time. It creates chaotic environments. And a lot of this is stuff that's within the home too. So really, a lot of this extra stress that children are going through in early childhood is adding to an already compromised nervous system. And each phase compounds the previous one. So it's leading to a brain locked into protection mode, hindering development, sleep, and emotional connection as the child grows. So what do we typically see in these children that have this busy brain syndrome that we talk about? The first, sleep challenges. Kids struggle to wind down. After tossing and turning, they experience racing thoughts. They can't turn off the brain. They're waking up frequently, but they can also feel tension, leading to things like stomach aches or headaches at bedtime. Second is speech and communication struggles. So effective communication requires executive function and the ability to filter distractions. When overwhelmed by stress and sensory input, kids lack the capacity for higher level communication. Emotional dysregulation is something we see all too often. So these children are having severe meltdowns over minor issues, minor things, and then they experience a long period to recover from being upset. So their inability to calm down isn't drama. It's their brain can't de-escalate. It can't turn off and switch to be like, okay, everything is going to be all right. Sensory overload. We see that a lot, and behavioral patterns. Kids cover their ears from loud noises. They avoid certain textures. They seek intense physical input like crashing or jumping, sometimes even just like tight pressure, like really tight hugs, as coping strategies. Movement helps them self-regulate during heightened tension. And lastly, social development. So when a body is stuck in survival mode, the brain prioritizes fight or flight, making it hard to read social cues and build relationships. A regulated nervous system is essential for healthy social interactions. So we talk about all these things that we see, and we hear that the parents, they're not just ignoring it. You guys are trying everything, but you're typically seeing a plateau at therapy, or you're not seeing changes at all, really. And so this is what changes you will see when you address the foundation. But first, let's talk about OT, speech, and behavioral interventions, because these are genuinely valuable tools. So we're not here to try and replace them. But when the nervous system is still stuck in fight or flight mode, those therapies are working against a foundational problem. So think of it this way. You can't remodel a house that has a cracked foundation, or think of it like pushing a car, but you have the parking brake on, okay? It makes the job a lot more difficult because there's so much resistance. The therapists are pushing hard. Your child is trying, but their nervous system is the brake. So we need to really release all of that tension, all of that overwhelm, get the body out of survival and get them into a state of regulation where they can actually take in that information at all of these therapies and process it properly. Neurologically focused chiropractic care uses insight scans. So these are going to objectively measure how much stress and tension is locked in your child's nervous system and where exactly it's creating this interference. Gentle chiropractic adjustments to the upper cervical spine, specifically the atlas and axis where the vagus nerve is most vulnerable, going back to kind of how birth trauma can play such a big role in this. Adjustments up here are going to help restore proper communication between the brain and the body. And subluxation is a combination of stuck joints and neurological interference that's disrupting this body-brain communication. So when the foundation is addressed, everything built on top of it is going to work better. OT makes faster progress. Speech therapy finally clicks. Behavioral struggles actually stick, or behavioral strategies actually stick, because the child's brain finally has the capacity to learn, regulate, and adapt. If your child is stuck in this cycle of meltdowns, sleepless nights, sensory struggles, the therapy plateaus, you don't have to accept that as a permanent picture, because there is a path forward, and it starts with the foundation. And we're not asking you to give up anything you're already doing. We're asking you to look at what might be underneath all of this. Myself, Dr. Kelly, Dr. Josh, and our team at Ridge Chiropractic and Wellness in Colorado Springs uses neurologically focused chiropractic care to find where that stress is locked in, measure it objectively, and then help your child's nerve system find its way back to calm. So every other therapy and strategy that you've been going to, that you've been trying, and you've been using has the best possible chance at working. Click the link in our bio, DM us. You can even schedule directly at our schedule link below, because your child doesn't need more labels. They just need answers, and we're here to give them to you.